Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. This is going to be STS Radio. This is going to be a new project that I'm working on. Basically, it's going to be a 1-hour radio show that I'm going to be trying to be hosting here. I have been given the opportunity thanks to a good friend of mine that I met at WWE Live show in Stockton, California. You guys might have heard that I went to. Basically, main event was John Cena versus Kane. Very, very fun show. Anytime WWE comes to town, always make sure you go out and see it. A lot of people always frown upon, going to a show if it's not a Monday Night Raw, if it's not a SmackDown. But I had a ton of fun at this show, and I got to sit next to a good buddy of mine named Mark, who has dropped this opportunity in my lap to host this show. I know that I've been making YouTube videos for the last 4 to 5 years, and you guys have followed me along on this ride, and we are where we are now, and I got a very good channel. I'm very blessed to say that. Thank you guys for sticking with me through all the ups and downs that we've been through. A lot of people out there really like, talking and hearing about professional wrestling, whether if it's, breaking down the news or talking about old wrestling that you remember from back in the day, like an old school review or something like that. That's basically what I'm going to be bringing to the radio show. Nothing really different than what the videos are, but basically a longer format and able to putting this out. I'm very thankful to my good buddy Mark that I met at the show. He is the board operator for Sports Radio 970 in Stockton, a sports station there. I've always grown up and I've always been a big fan of sports radio. I used to listen to KSAC 1240. In Sacramento, California. They were based out of Old Sac. Lots of good shows. I remember calling in, before school, getting home, calling in, getting on the radio after school. Just trying to talk sports as much as I could and get my voice out there. And it was a fun hobby to have. As I grew up, I started calling less and less, but I always listened to shows on 1240, which would become KHTK in Sacramento. Carmichael Dave, Grant Napier, the Rise guys, lots of good shows, that you can give shout outs to on that channel. I grew up, listening to sports and thinking that was something that I really wanted to do. Life, throws you things and you move in different directions and you don't really, sometimes end up with your dream job that you wanted to. Very lucky to have the job that I have. I'm a professional meat cutter in a very well-known grocery store. And, it is what it is. I make YouTube videos breaking down professional wrestling. Lots of people out there, go after, finding out what's going on in the world of wrestling. So that's what we're going to do with this show. So big thank yous to go out to Mark. This shows, we're not going to be really doing like, reviews of Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. There's lots of other shows that are out there on the internet for you guys to sort of really just break that down. I'm a big fan of listening to The Law, Wrestling Observer. Both of those shows, break down just about every show that's on television. They give you reviews of Raw, SmackDown, Impact, the pay-per-views and things like that. And this show, we're just basically going to be doing just what the title of the show is, just STS. We're just going to be talking about what's going down in the world of professional wrestling. If it's writing out the highs or writing out the lows. I know that Monday Night Raw show was one of those shows. I don't know if it was if it was the people in WWE. They gave the writers the day off and they just basically phoned it in because it was a holiday. If they thought that basically people weren't going to be watching the show if it was because of the holiday, but basically that was one of the worst shows. I can't really call it one of the worst shows that I've ever seen. I know that when Wrestling Observer was talking about it, Dave Meltzer was really referring it back to the old days of WCW in 2000 and 2001, the closing days, where basically they had no they had no direction to where they were going. It was just the wheels were off the track. They were doing anything they could do to try and save it. I think that, Triple H, Stephanie, Vince, that they've gone in a direction. Brock Lesnar is our new champion of the WWE, and, he's not a full-time guy. For years, as we grew up, we had Hulk Hogan, who, he wasn't used on every show, He was sort of like a special time appearance guy. If you went to a house show, he would wrestle in the main event. But this guy wasn't going to be on Superstars. He wasn't going to be on All American Challenge. He wasn't going to be on any of the shows all week. He might do promos. He might do promos for the local market if you're going to a show to tell you that he's going to be there and he's going to make you sell a ticket. But you knew that Hulk Hogan was the main guy. And in order to see him wrestle, you were going to have to order the pay-per-view. I know that he did special shows like Saturday Night's Main Event, and if you were lucky enough to, you were able to stay up and watch that show, you were able to see him wrestle. That was a big-time deal for WWF at the time because, Saturday Night's Main Event taking over Saturday Night Live's time slot, and not really being on prime time because it would come on at 11:30 at night. But on a Saturday, they tuned in and they got some of the biggest ratings wrestling has ever gotten in the history of national television out there. Hulk Hogan was a big time draw for them. But as time changed, I think that the wrestling that we see today, a lot of people point towards the Attitude Era is what's changed it to where they were. I really go back to the era after Hulk Hogan when Bret the Hitman Hart, Monday Night Raw, was starting up with Shawn Michaels. They weren't really into the Monday Night Wars yet, but it was around that time that you basically saw jobbers disappearing from WWE TV. You had lower card stars, but almost everybody on Monday Night Raw was some sort of a named talent that you saw get wins somewhere along the way. And basically, you got to see the champion start working more. Bret the Hitman Hart, when he won the championship, he sort of took on this role of being the worker, the workhorse of the company. You got to see him wrestle championship matches, whether if it was against Bob Backlund, Virgil, the 1-2-3 Kid, which aren't really big names in wrestling. I know Bob Backlund was a champion way back in the days, and he was making his comeback. He wasn't one of the big name stars. He would become WWF champion by beating Bret. But at the date of their Superstars match, he was sort of just that guy. I remember when Bob Backlund came in to the company, and they did the gimmick of him coming back after being out after 16 years. I can't remember. I seem to remember some vignettes of him being some sort of a carpenter, or he might have been some sort of a teacher. I can't remember where they said he was and what he'd been doing, but he wanted to come back and wrestle and prove that he could still do it. I thought the old guy was crazy. He reminded me of the science teacher I had that basically, this guy can't do it. I didn't know anything about the history of wrestling. I didn't know about the history of him winning the championship and keeping it for so long before being beat by the Iron Sheik and basically, then starting the Hulkamania era that would continue on from there. But, Bret Hart really started, being on TV and working. And that's the way we know of our champion as of today. It doesn't matter if the champion was Shawn Michaels or Triple H, The Undertaker, especially a guy like John Cena. Once he finally won the belt, we get to see this guy week in and week out, and now here we are with a champion as a Brock Lesnar. I know that we thought we were going to get this problem when The Rock won the championship at the Royal Rumble, and he was going to keep it in order to, to have this big rematch with John Cena at WrestleMania 29. The people were going crazy. Rock can't win the belt because basically, no one's going to want to go to a house show if the champion's not there. Nobody's going to want to watch Monday Night Raw if the champion's not there. Basically, they were able to fill the gaps between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. Rock was there a whole lot more than we thought was going to be. But, I think that this is a lot different than that Rock run. Brock Lesnar winning the championship at SummerSlam really changed what professional wrestling is for the WWF. Basically, Brock Lesnar, he got a deal to come to WWE after his UFC days were done, and basically they wanted his name value. I don't think they were really even going to be going off what he had done in WWE in the past. It had been a long time. I know a lot of people would remember him, but I don't think everybody remembered everything he's done. I'm sure there's people watching wrestling today who weren't even watching wrestling when Brock was champion in 2002, going up against Rock at the SummerSlam, and it's just weird. Brock, wins the championship at SummerSlam, and this guy is just ghost town. We don't even know really when we're going to see this again. We have to have Triple H announcing that John Cena has basically asked for his rematch, and we're going to see it at Night of Champions. We don't know if we're going to see Brock even, hype this match up before Night of Champions, if he's just going to be a guy who's just going to be a pay-per-view guy. I mean, you can sort of, go off of what UFC does, where basically a guy has a fight, you see it on pay-per-view, and then all of a sudden, they book him another fight, and then he pops up. UFC doesn't really have television shows where their stars appear on them and fight in random fights in order to get you through it. It's just, there's a guy, and you just have to follow him through him. I think the UFC goes off a thing where basically they hope that every fan buys every pay-per-view because they just get hooked up. WWE, they have to hook you up where basically you're going to watch Raw, you're going to watch SmackDown each and every week, and then all of a sudden at the end of that, if you liked it enough, then you're going to watch the pay-per-view. But then again, as I was saying that thought, I didn't even really think about the WWE Network starting out basically with the way that they've changed the game is with the WWE Network, the pay-per-views are included for only $9.99. They just have to try and get you to hook in to buy this network, and with the network for only $9.99, you get what you used to have to pay $45 to $55 depending on your taxes and your cable or whatever type of hookup you had. Basically, now you get this for I keep on wanting to say for free. For me, I buy the network because they give me enough shows along the way. Basically, when a pay-per-view comes along, whether if it's Payback, SummerSlam, Night of Champions, the show comes on, I get to sit here in my chair, I watch it on my television. I feel like I am, basically getting the pay-per-view like I did back in the day. It's been long enough. I think the statute of limitations are out there. I don't even think that the cable company that I used to have back in the day is still in service. I don't think anybody's going to come after me. Maybe Vince might send Triple H after me and he'll hit me with a pedigree to pay him back. But, back in the day when we used to have we used to call them the black box, even though the box was brown and it sat on top of the television. Basically, it just got all of the channels what you were going for. You just signed up for basic cable and everything worked. The pay-per-view channels, your nudie channels, and all the everythings you ever got. So basically, you were able to watch boxing, you were able to watch wrestling. I remember watching the early days of the UFC when it was basically guys going out there with beer bellies and just throwing these just shots, just hitting each other. Of course, you had guys like Shamrock, and you had guys like Gracie who looked unbeatable because they actually went in there with skill, and they weren't just looking to punch and knock somebody out like it was some bar fight. They would lock you up and put you in a hold. It was confusing because you would see guys that you would think, like if it was a schoolyard fight, getting their ass whooped, win a match because they drop down on the floor. They're able to grab an arm lock, and the guy's tapping out because he doesn't want the other guy to snap his arm. But basically, we used to watch all those back in the day on the black box, and we used to have those. That's the same thing. That's the same feeling I have when I watch the WWE Network. It's like I'm not even really paying for it because I sit down. I love the WWE Network. I love it big time. I watch everything from, I just watched an old Nitro the other night. They just added those up on there. Saturday night's Main Event is a fun show to get hyped up for the pay-per-views. I've been watching those. I just closed out watching all of the Night of Champions in order to get to this year's Night of Champions. There's just so much stuff on the network I can't even really keep up with the stuff that I want to watch because every day they're adding something new and it wants me to go in a different direction. You know, when it first came out, I was trying to follow the NWO's run when it first came in. Now it might even be better. Maybe it's better that I stop because now I'll be able to go back and actually watch the Nitros, which will hype me up in order to watch the pay-per-views even more. So maybe that's a different direction that I was going to, because I mean, when you watch the first Nitro, they're hyping up, you know, buying, you know, the next pay-per-view, which was going to be Fall Brawl featuring War Games, which, you know, War Games is one of the biggest pay-per-views that WCW ever did. You know, you get, you know, 8 guys in 2 rings. I always didn't like that they had 2 rings in there. I think that definitely you could have 8 guys in 1 ring. That's why I really, you know, think it's foo-foo that basically, you know, WWE always says they're not going to do War Games because they don't want to give away, you know, selling those seats where that extra ring is going to be. Plus, it always looked funny on TV, especially when they did like World War III, where they would have three rings out there, and you know, your camera angles were way off. There was things going on in one ring, and you were trying to watch the things that were going on in the other ring. You can get 8 guys in 1 ring with a cage around it, and you can have enough. You know, I was really hoping that, you know, there's rumors that at Battleground last year, they were going to do some sort of a War Games match, maybe featuring the Shield, maybe the Shield versus the Wyatts, maybe a group of guys going up against the Authority. I think that would have been a match that I think a lot of people really want to see. You know, when the War Games DVD Blu-ray set came out, I think that did real good sales. I remember, you know, people saying that it did exceed what WWF thought they were going to be able to do. We're on a huge, just way off in left field. Basically, we were trying to talk about Brock Lesnar not being on TV and what they're missing. In WWE right now is I think they don't really even know really what direction they're going in. You know, for 2 weeks they've been telling us John Cena is the #1 contender. He's going to be given his rematch clause, and then all of a sudden on Monday, Triple H says, you know, maybe you getting the rematch isn't what's best for business. I, you know, need, you know, guys to impress me to see who's going to get the shot at Brock Lesnar. So we get to see Randy Orton, Chris Jericho, John Cena, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. Everybody's out there trying to state their case on you know, why they're more important than whoever else is in, you know, in the ring at that time. And then you know, they have a 6-man, you know, where there were hunters out there trying to evaluate the talent and see who the best is out there. And then at the end, it's not even John Cena who gets the win, even though during the show they're showing us commercials trying to get us hyped up to, you know, either buy the network or just get hyped up to watch Night of Champions as it is. And they're giving us the match John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. They're telling us who's going to be in there. It's almost like a spoiler for what's going to happen at the end of the show. And then come the end of the show, you know, it's Roman Reigns who gets the pin, looking like he's the man. So is Roman Reigns the #1 contender? You have more questions than answers. And then you sit down and you watch the Triple H interview today where he does a sit-down gimmick with Michael Cole, and they're talking about, you know, what's going on in WWE at the time. And he's just nonchalantly saying John Cena is the #1 contender. He better be ready. You know, he better be more prepared than he was last time at SummerSlam because he's going to get his ass kicked. Definitely, I think that, you know, anytime you have a pay-per-view, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar, it's going to be one of the biggest matches that WWE can offer. It's always, you know, it's going to be a good one. I mean, I've seen Brock Lesnar fight a handful of times live at these shows. You know, I went and saw Lesnar versus Triple H. I saw Lesnar versus Punk. Lesnar versus Cena. I got to see Lesnar versus Taker. You know, of course, when he beat Taker's streak at WrestleMania 30, that's, you know, one of those wrestling moments that you're never going to forget. It's definitely going to live on in everybody's mind, and it's going to be crazy. And, you know, the feel that Brock Lesnar gets when he comes down to the ring is like it's not wrestling. It's almost like that other stuff might be wrestling, but this is real. I mean, that's the only way that I can really put it. John Cena versus Brock Lesnar is going to be a fight. I think that people were really hoping for the blood and guts that we got at Extreme Rules when that match happened a few years ago at SummerSlam, and we didn't get to see the elbows to the to the liver and the kidneys. We didn't see the elbows to the forehead, which busted Cena open very early in that Extreme Rules match. And but we got to see Brock Lesnar just throw John Cena around the ring like he was a rag doll. He got to throw him around basically like the way I wrestle my kids. When they wake me up early on a Saturday morning because they want me to get them cereal or take them to the store to buy them donuts or something like that. And Dad gets up and Dad's all ferocious and he's hitting the FU on him. I'm throwing one while I'm picking the other one up and I'm throwing that one over. It's just the way you start a fun morning. And that's basically that's the way SummerSlam went. So it's almost like Triple H crumpled up the Monday Night Raw show and threw it out the window. You can think about the things that you wish you would have thrown away. The whole segment with the Bellas, basically with Nikki calling out Brie for everything that's ever happened in the Bella household, basically saying that Brie wasn't smart enough to pass her own tests. She couldn't pass the driver's test. She got into an accident and basically, fraudulently said that it was Nikki that was involved in the accident because she didn't have her own driver's license. She stole her boyfriend at the prom. All sorts of things, and this revolves around into Nikki getting the number one contendership from Stephanie, which I think is going to happen on SmackDown this week, and we're going to have to see how that plays out, seeing Paige versus Nikki, more than likely, I would guess. We're going to see AJ get involved in that match, and maybe, I think, a Night of Champions that would open up and make some sort of a four-way. But basically, I think that this is all involved around, promoting Total Divas debuting on Sunday on the E! channel. I'm always been very plus on Total Divas. I think it's a very good show. I always sit down and I watch the 1 hour show, and when it's over, I always feel like I only watched a half-hour show. I never really get to the point with Total Divas where I just feel like I've seen too much. It's very entertaining, whoever writes it, whoever sits it down. It's very not real. I've been lucky enough to be in certain places and seen where they've been. I actually stayed in the same hotel they did. When I went to LA a few years ago on accident, when me and my family were leaving to go for our first day of Disneyland after a SummerSlam excursion with my friends, they were Total Divas and they were shooting scenes as they were leaving, to go out on the road. We got to see shots that they never even used on the television show, where the redhead was saying goodbye to her boyfriend, and basically you saw the girls standing off to the side that she was going to be riding with, acting like they weren't even riding there. They made it look like she drove off on her own when basically she drove about 15 feet, stopped, put it in reverse, came back, and Natalia and JoJo got in the car, and then they really drove off. And then, honestly, the boyfriend just awkwardly just stood there in the parking lot for a long-ass time. He was there longer than we were. We got on our bus and left. He must have been really sad about, about her leaving, I guess. I'm not sure. But, I'm not going to say that Total Divas sucks. But, basically, they've done 2 seasons of Total Divas. They've got good ratings on the show. They've been lucky enough that E! has picked them up and they've extended them. And, E! seems like they're really behind the show, and they've never really stuck their nose into the business. And everything that I've read about what's going down is that basically, E! asked for this sort of a thing. They wanted to make the show this season about Nikki versus Brie, them not being, together. We've also seen the Funkadactyls get split up, where they basically had a fight on one show that was horrible. If you don't remember that match, you're luckier than me. And basically, we never saw anything. I did read one thing out there that Naomi, was getting her eye fixed from where she had the eye problem with Oksana. Put the knee right into her orbital bone and it broke. She was able to get healed. She was able to come back. I think she came back a lot sooner than a lot of people thought. But maybe she just saw the writing on the wall that WWE really didn't have anything for her, so she actually went in and she got that thing fixed for real. So when that she does come back, she won't have any trouble with what's going down. So many of these wrestlers these days, they just come back as soon as they can from any injury or anything like that because they're scared of losing their spots or, scared of losing pay or maybe just forgetting, what happened. One day you're a guy like JTG where you're getting used all the time, and next thing you know, you don't get used on Raw, and next thing you know, you've been sitting at home for 2 years and you don't even realize it. Or WWE doesn't even really realize that you've been gone. And then again, if you're like Zack Ryder and you're complaining on Twitter and they actually do bring you to Monday Night Raw, you get buried right there in the center of the ring, and you probably almost wish that you were just sitting at home collecting that paycheck instead of getting embarrassed on TV like that. I think that what they're moving towards might be all right if they just have a normal maybe what I think they're going to do is some sort of a 4-way at the pay-per-view. I really wish they would just sort of settle down on Paige versus AJ, but then again, they don't want to run with 2 Divas matches on the pay-per-view, I'm guessing, so maybe they're just trying to move all the girls into one match, especially when they're trying to focus on Total Divas. Paige and AJ aren't even girls that are on the show. I don't know why they didn't put AJ on there. When Total Divas debuted, AJ was one of the most popular characters in WWE, and think if they would have went in that direction and they would have locked her up, I don't think they would have known where the world was going to end up. But just think, you would have AJ on there, and she's involved. She's married. I think most people have seen the wedding pictures by now or just known the news about AJ marrying CM Punk. If AJ would have been a part of this show, she would have been contractually obligated to be sharing part of her life right now, and we could actually see an inside sight on what is going down with basically her husband CM Punk walking out of the company. Maybe he would do something like they did with the Kardashians, where with Kanye West marrying into the family, he just basically said that he wasn't going to be any part of the show. He didn't want to be on it. Anytime that they're shooting, they have to shoot around him. They have to make sure they overly edit to make sure that he's not seen or shown on the show. They can talk about him. They can mention him, but they can't show him. Maybe it's something like that, and at least we'd be able to get some sort of an understanding on what is going on there, because I think that's one of the biggest wrestling topics that it is out there these days about what is going down with CM Punk. Of course, today we caught wind on basically CM Punk sending a huge numbers of paperwork over to WWE, threatening a lawsuit, basically saying that he's been sitting at home, he hasn't been working, so he hasn't been getting that normal paycheck. But WWE has been out there selling T-shirts, and they've been selling stuffed animals and everything that they offer on WWE Shop. They've been selling these things, and CM Punk hasn't been seeing any of the royalties. And then I think the one thing that really put it over the edge that I've seen in stories is that they're going to be featuring him in the WWE 2K15 video game, even though he's been out of the company since January. They didn't do the roster reveal until August. I don't know if anybody's ever done the work and seen like who the newest superstar that's going to be featured in the game is and when they debuted, and if they could put somebody into the game. Why can't they take somebody out of the game? I don't think that WWE is really trying to stick it to them. I don't think that they think they're going to make any more money because CM Punk is in the game. I think CM Punk being in the game is almost more of a distraction other than anything else out there about him being in there. I don't understand why somebody would be excited that CM Punk is in the game. It's not like, I can't see this guy wrestle on Monday nights because he's not in the company anymore. So, after Monday Night Raw, I'll just pop in the video game, I'll play a few rounds of CM Punk, and I'll be just as excited as I saw him. CM Punk, is not one of my favorite guys. I don't really like to say that I like CM Punk. I do like CM Punk matches, like a match like CM Punk versus John Cena Night of Champions from a few years ago, when they had the sort of the draw where I believe they pinned each other at the same time in the match, and the ref counted each guy's shoulders down for the 1, 2, 3. Punk got to keep his championship, and they moved on from there. I think those are the kind of matches that, I want to see again. Those are the matches that you should be looking out and finding on the WWE Network. It's most of the CM Punk matches that you're going to want to remember. I know that everybody likes to bring up during CM Punk's big, long title run, in the company, he wasn't even really main eventing, what was going down. He was being featured in a heavily featured spot because he was the WWE champion and he was carrying around the belt. But it was like John Cena against John Laurinaitis, John Cena against Alberto Del Rio, John Cena against Big Show. Those were the matches that were taking the main event spots, even though they were matches that, if you really ask somebody what match you were really looking forward to on the show, it wasn't those matches. John Cena is always going to be the number one focus of the company, and maybe that's one of the reasons why CM Punk actually left. I think there was times in the company when he was being, being the number, 1.1 guy, or maybe he was 1A or 1B. I don't think he was ever going to be, CM Punk's spot. I think there was a time when he did get hurt, but I think it wasn't even that long. They didn't even take Cena off TV. Maybe if they were having fear of Cena not being there, but like Hell in a Cell, Cena got hurt, and basically they still brought him to the show in order to work the pre-show during the Q&A, just so maybe you would think that CM Punk was at least in the building for the Ryback versus CM Punk match. Maybe he would get somehow involved because of how much these guys really didn't get along together, and basically it was supposed to be CM Punk versus John Cena, and the way that they worked around that in order to make Ryback the number one contender was awesome. The rise of Ryback is way cool. I know that Ryback is down with an injury right now, but once Ryback comes back, my thoughts are with him, and I can only hope that Ryback, when he is healthy and he's able to come back, WWE will put him in a role where he is, wanted to be seen by the fans. I think that when Ryback was a babyface of the company, he was on fire like crazy. And even when they turned him heel to go against John Cena after WrestleMania 29, that was a match that people really wanted to see. People really didn't want to see Ryback get joined up with Paul Heyman, and the downfall of Ryback. Ryback isn't a guy that you want to see lose matches over and over again. If Ryback has to lose a match here or there along the way, that's fine. But you just don't beat this guy 16 times in a row and act like nothing's happened. This guy is colder than the ice cream in the freezer. It just I think that easily, you have him in the ring, start popping that shoulder again, start yelling, "Feed me more" a few times. I think that easily, Ryback is a guy that people really get behind against. He could become a monstrous guy in there. They always sort of like to feature Mark Henry because he's been around there so long and he's a really big dude. And it's hard to think that you're going to be able to beat down a giant like this. But, Ryback sort of is, that same Ryback is that, that same sort of a guy. And he should be getting treated that way. Ryback easily could be a number one contender to go up against anybody if they would have been pushing him right for the last 6 months to a year. Ryback could be one of those guys I believe that you can put in a match against Brock Lesnar and you wouldn't be thinking that he's going to kill him. Brock being the champion is the main thing that we're trying to talk about here. Brock being the champion, the problem is that you got John Cena as a #1 contender. I know there's a lot of people thinking that they're pushing towards Roman Reigns, moving towards, being a guy that can go up against them. And except for that, who do they really have? I mean, you've got, Rock is a guy that's sort of on the roster, but you know that he's not going to come back unless it's WrestleMania. We were lucky enough to get him at a Royal Rumble. We were lucky enough to get him in an Elimination Chamber, but I don't think he's going to work another show like that. I think Rock is a WrestleMania or nothing kind of guy now. If we ever even really get to see him wrestle again, I know that he says the right things when he's asked, about wrestling, as he says they do. Wrestling's in his blood. He loves wrestling. But it's just that I don't think Rock's a guy who's going to wrestle. I think the main thing that's involved with Rock is money. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. He's not going to wrestle for free. He knows what his name value is worth. He's not going to go in there for no reason. It was awesome to see him at WrestleMania 30. But, Rock's not a guy who's going to come back and do some 2-minute promo with a guy like Adam Rose. Rock is going to work with Roman Reigns. Rock is going to work with Brock Lesnar. Rock is going to work with John Cena. And honestly, that's about it. Brock Lesnar versus Sheamus. Brock Lesnar versus Wade Barrett. Brock Lesnar versus... I can't even put guys that might be, close to the top who deserve a shot at a guy like this. There it really is nobody else. I mean, I think that, with Night of Champions, there's the thought that maybe, somebody will run in and help John Cena not win the match, maybe get disqualified, and then, Brock would be the champion. He would win the match, and then he would go off, and we wouldn't see him again for a while. And, then you could have some sort of a John Cena match, main event, Hell in the Cell, main event Survivor Series or TLC, and you would just sort of forget about Brock being the champion and why he's not there. But, if Brock was on the show and Brock needed somebody to fight him, there's nobody really out there that makes sense, for what they're doing. I think that's why WWE is hitting this mode right now with Monday Night Raw, where they just don't really know what to do in order to get somebody from point A to point B. You name somebody the #1 contender, and if they can't go out there and have promos against the guy that he's supposed to have the match against, what do you do with them? Are we just supposed to see John Cena versus The Miz and John Cena versus Damian Sandow, and him beating guys like this on Monday Night Raw in the main event is supposed to get you excited to see Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar is with Paul Heyman. Maybe if Paul Heyman actually had some sort of a stable, if you could go back in the days like it was with like Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen. Anytime you had a match, like let's say it's Sting building up towards a match at Starrcade, Sting is going to have to go through the members of the Four Horsemen. He's going to have to fight Benoit one week. He's going to have to fight Mongo one week. He'll have to fight Arn Anderson in the last week, and he'll beat all three of those guys. But by the end of all three of those matches, he's not going to be at 100% by the time he finally gets to fight Flair. And that was the point of all of those matches. John Cena is just a guy who's just supposed to just get to Night of Champions, and all of a sudden, just because it's John Cena, just because it's Brock Lesnar, this is a match that we're supposed to care about. I really think that Night of Champions is a match that, Night of Champions is a show that really is going to matter at the end of the day. I think that when you look at the card that they've been building and the card that they have so far, it's going to be fun. I mean, you got Brock Lesnar versus John Cena, one of the biggest matches that they can do in WWE. Sheamus versus Cesaro, going out the United States Championship. These are two big dudes that can really beat the crap out of each other, and hit each other about as hard as they can. Plus, they're very athletic in the ring. Cesaro's always, trying to come up with things that's gonna make the crowd, get going, and he's a really a wrestler's wrestler, I guess you can say. Like, if you've been watching wrestling since the 80s, Cesaro is a guy that you can get glued towards and really want to see. Ziggler and Miz are two guys that are, really going to go out there and really try and steal the show. You know, they're really, I don't think they care if they get, you know, 4, 8, or 15 minutes. They're gonna take advantage of any time that they do get, and they're always gonna have a good match. I mean, Ziggler versus Miz easily was the match of the night at that house show in Stockton that I was talking about. Maybe you were lucky enough to catch that match. I think they did it in Sacramento. I think they did it in wherever they went after here, Bakersfield as well. But you know, the match at SummerSlam, where Ziggler actually won the championship, a lot of people were surprised by that. That was, you know, really good stuff. And, of course, you're also going to see matches, you know, more than likely Swagger versus Bo, which is a match that maybe not everybody's going to care about, but they've been giving it a lot of time on TV. Mark Henry versus Rusev is a match that I don't think people are really getting behind as much as they did Jack Swagger versus Rusev, but it looks like the Swagger and Rusev, you know, feud is finally over, and they're moving on from that. You know, maybe we'll get to see 2 matches. Maybe we'll see the Bella versus Bella. Maybe we'll see the 4-way that I was talking about. But definitely Paige will be defending her Divas Championship somewhere along the way out there. So, I mean, Night of Champions, as a wrestling fan, that's a show that you can get behind, you know. I think that, you know, when you look at the history of time, I don't want to spend too much time bashing WWE, but, you know, like, if you look at the Night of Champions of the past, they've given us one main event that's been really, really good, and, you know, they give you a lot of matches that just sort of just are guys that are out there. I mean, around this time last year is when Punk started moving through guys in the Heyman stable, where Punk was fighting against Axel, Punk was fighting against Ryback. It just was a long series of matches that nobody cared about, and, you know, it is what it is. Bray Wyatt is a guy that's going to be out there. I don't know what they're going to do with him. Maybe he'll fight Jericho again. I'm really hoping that Bray Wyatt versus Jericho in the steel cage match on Monday night is going to be some sort of a blow-off match for that feud. We all had hopes. We all got dreams, people. But there's also, you know, Roman Reigns and Randy Orton. Is that going to be a rematch? You know, there's those 4 guys you can patch up in about any situation. Seth Rollins is going to need a match. Is Dean Ambrose going to be back and they're going to have a rematch? You know, we're going to have to see what they do with the last, you know, few weeks of getting us to the point we're going to be at. But Night of Champions is going to be a great show. Spent a lot of time talking about John Cena and, you know, what he means to WWE and everything like that. So I just want to go off on a side note, go in a different direction. I wanted to talk about a series of videos that I've been seeing out there on my YouTube channel, Stevie Breach. I've been doing videos for a long time, and I think I've talked about almost about anything that's ever popped up in my head. A lot of people might joke, you know, do you ever think about something involved in wrestling and not make a video on it? But basically, you know, I've talked in the past about the Make-A-Wish Foundation and, you know, everything that WWE does for it, and it seems like every time you turn around, John Cena is granting a wish for somebody. We got to see on Total Divas last year, Natalya granted a wish. I saw, you know, on Twitter, Kane had a wish a few weeks ago. I believe it was on the Randy Orton, you know, Predator DVD. I think that was on there that he actually got to grant a wish as well. And he actually made a joke during the whole thing that, you know, most of the time the kids wanted to meet Cena. And, you know, I always think it's really special what they do. And somebody that I've been watching on YouTube for a long time, you know, she lives in El Paso. Her name on YouTube is Miss W. I'm sorry, let's not mess this up. Very important because I want you to go check these videos out. It's Miss WWE Fan 13. She got a Make-A-Wish granted, where basically, you know, she got to go to and the Anaheim Raw, which was a few weeks ago, or was that last week? And she got to go to Disneyland. She got to go to, she went to Universal Studios. She got to have a whole week, basically, in Los Angeles that was built around meeting John Cena and going to the WWE show. And, you know, it's really cool, especially that he granted the wish for somebody that I've been, you know, watching on YouTube. I mean, for at least 2 years, because I remember watching her trip when she went to Miami for WrestleMania 28, and she had a ton of fun there. But John Cena, it seemed like she made this video about the stuff that she was bringing to the show in order for John Cena to sign, and John Cena signed every bit of it. It took her 18 minutes in her video in order to show off all the stuff that she got signed from magazines, 8x10s, figures, DVD covers, T-shirts, and here's to her. I mean, to get a wish granted by John Cena, and get to see her, day in the life videos, and get to see, how ecstatic it was. I apologize for talking about her and not giving her advance notice that I was going to be doing this. But then again, this is just sort of like a prototype show. It might not ever, see the light of day. Maybe there'll be some sort of a glitch along the way, and maybe the show will be lost forever, or maybe it may not ever be uploaded. But basically, I don't know, what she has in order to get the Make-A-Wish done, but definitely by watching her videos, you get to see an uplift in her spirit from being able to be told that she's going to John Cena, and watching her videos about flying to Los Angeles, going to the show and meeting John. I mean, I think that's a big thing for Make-A-Wish is. I think that we could all see from the videos. I believe his name was Connor the Crusher, Daniel Bryan's Make-A-Wish. Where basically the whole WWE family revolved around this kid, and they were really feeling that if they gave Connor a goal to work towards, they would be able to help his situation, and so they gave him a trip to WrestleMania 30, where he was going to be able to be in the front row to see Daniel Bryan win the WWE Championship. And of course, Daniel beats Triple H. He goes on, he beats Batista and Randy Orton, and the first thing he does is he drops the titles in the ring. He goes out to ringside and he hugs Connor and tells him that he's his inspiration, that he was able to beat these three men tonight and become the champion. And Connor feels like he is basically Daniel Bryan's good luck charm, and it's a special thing that WWE does. I know that it's a little bit confusing at some times, and I know I'm older, and it's a tough thing to nitpick that we're supposed to see people like Triple H and Stephanie on television, and see them as bad characters and on the same show, even though it's not a part of the WWE, I guess you can say, universe. We're in a different universe because it's a sub-commercial, sort of talking about the whole Make-A-Wish thing, and talking about the life of Connor and what he meant to them, and see them sort of break down talking about them, and trying to get people to donate to the cause. I honestly can't remember the disease that Connor had, but now they have this deal where you can text this number, and the text will take $5 to your phone bill, and the $5 will go to that foundation to make sure that they can try and fight this disease. And it's a weird line, because when you're watching a movie, and that Denzel Washington is a dirty cop, and then you see him on the Tonight Show, and he's laughing with Jimmy Fallon, and you're like, well, you were just a dirty cop doing coke a minute ago on this other movie, and now here you are, being a nice guy talking about drinking orange juice and reading the newspaper on Sunday mornings. It doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense because they're real people in real life. But here we are, we're trying to get involved with all the drama and everything that's going on during a wrestling show, and now you're trying to be a nice guy. I don't know. Sometimes it makes you want to pull your hair out. You sort of wish that they would, send somebody else who's out there. But definitely, congratulations to Miss WWE Fan 13. Definitely go check out her videos. She's got about 400 subscribers right now. So anybody going over there and hit the subscribe button, give her a few views on these videos. Check out all the stuff that she was able to do. She made a video, going to Disneyland, getting on the flight and going there. Getting to see her meet John Cena, getting to see all the stuff that she was bringing, all the stuff that she signed. I've had a lot of fun watching these videos, so thank you very much. Rounding out this show, I had a lot of fun doing it. I have to say that honestly, I was very nervous when I first set out to start doing this. Honestly, just to get the intro, those first few seconds, something that I've said 1,000 times, starting a normal YouTube video. Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Reach coming to you. Honestly, took me at least 13, maybe even 14 takes to the point where I just said, fuck it. I apologize. I was going to try and get it to where I wasn't going to cuss on this show. If the producer has to go in and beep that or cut that out, I apologize to whoever has to do that. But basically, I hope that this is a success. I know that I've made long videos in the past, and I hope that this was able to get you through a day where basically maybe you're sitting at a desk working, maybe you're playing this in the background while you're doing some homework or playing a video game or doing whatever you do, because that's why I've always enjoyed people making wrestling discussion videos, because I know as a wrestling fan, wrestling isn't really the hot #1 thing. That's why it's so hard when I watch things on the WWE Network like the Monday Night Wars documentary series, and I'm just thinking about, Stone Cold Steve Austin going after and hitting the stunner on Vince McMahon, and then getting to go to work the next day when I would work at a Pizza Hut, and basically we had every single person, except for the boss, watching Monday Night Raw, watching Nitro. Everybody was flipping the channel back and forth to see everything that was going down. It didn't matter if they were the guy who delivered pizzas, the guy that made the pizzas, the guy who washed the dishes, the person that waited the counters, the person that listened to the phones. Even if they weren't a real wrestling fan, they were watching wrestling in order just to be in the conversation the next day, just because it was a wrestling show, but it was also, they didn't have singing and dancing. It wasn't like a variety show, but they honestly had everything that brought something to the table. That is the reason why, it's gotten away from that. I don't know if people said the closing of WCW led to a lot of people leaving because WCW was something that they were really loyal to. WWE at the time was killing it with the Attitude Era, and there was too much, swearing and middle fingers, and those are the things that standards and practices made sure that WCW wouldn't do. Being owned by the Turner Company, they wanted to make sure that it was a homegrown family wrestling product. They let guys go out there and wrestle and fight and jump and hit each other with pipes in the back of the head. They got to have normal wrestling angles that we've seen for years, but basically we didn't get to see TNA, I guess you can say. That's weird. I didn't even talk about TNA on this show at all. Honestly, TNA, it's still out there. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still rooting about it. I've sat out and I've watched a few shows. I watched the Hardcore Justice show. I watched the they did another, sort of pay-per-view style one, right before that one. I can't remember what that one was. I've watched that one. I honestly, when they moved to Wednesdays, it sort of slipped my mind that it's on Wednesdays. It's fun. It's Wednesday today. I didn't watch Impact, and they've really got some good stuff going on. They've got the three-ways going on right now, the Dudleys, the Hardys, and the Wolves going at it. The Wolves, a great tag team. They're stuck in TNA. I know that was sort of their decision. Maybe it was WWE's decision not to sign them. But Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, two of the best wrestlers in the world today. I know a lot of people give that credit to Daniel Bryan. Or maybe some people even give it to some Japanese wrestlers that I've never even heard of or never even seen wrestle. But Davey and Eddie are two guys that, I'll put in that conversation any day. And, they go over to TNA and here they are, busting their ass and, there's barely anybody even really watching and keeping up with what's going on over there. And that's my fault. When they switched to Wednesdays, I tried to make videos to promote it just so it would be on everybody's mind. And what do you know, the guy that was promoting it even slipped his mind. So it is what it is. It's going to be hard to try and get into the shape of things. I know that SmackDown is going to be changing its days in October, so that's coming up sooner than later. Maybe it's November. They're going to be moving to Thursdays. I think that basically it's not really going to be that big of a difference. I think that right now with SmackDown being on Fridays, I think most people that I know watch that on DVR, if they even watch it at all. So switching it over to Thursdays isn't going to be the biggest deal. But you got to show some love to TNA. Nobody really wants to see that, close up shop. We've seen a lot of changes in that company. I think everybody saw that coming when AJ Styles didn't re-sign with the company. A lot of names have come and gone, from TNA. But AJ, to me, honestly, was the guy for TNA. And for him, to win the championship at Bound for Glory, and that happened in October, and then come January, he's not even with the company anymore. Here he is, AJ Styles. I think if I made my year-end review award show, AJ Styles might be the wrestler of the year this year. Think of the stuff that he's been doing, from helping out his name on the independent circuit, getting these big, huge independent shows, to wrestling for Ring of Honor, helping them out, giving them a big name, of course, going over to New Japan, becoming the champion, and really having dynamite matches that, every time he wrestles over there, people are really talking about. And, the WWE really missed the boat on him. I don't know where he would have fit in, but definitely at the time, they were building up Daniel Bryan. They had their guy that was going to become the new thing. Of course, they have Roman Reigns that they've been thinking about for a good long time. Around that time, they had brought in Batista, and here they are, sitting here in, I guess it was the beginning of September, moving us towards the dog days of the year. I always call December one of the worst times for WWE, just basically because I never really get into it. I mean, there's so much stuff going on with work in between the Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays. TLC is a pay-per-view that might be a good show, but I don't really know what's going on by the time, because just the holiday time at my work really kicks myself in the butt. Even in those weeks of the beginning of December, that's when crab season is. That's always a really busy time at my work. Some people get real busy for Thanksgiving, and they get real busy for Christmas, and they die out in the middle. But, my work is always, running strong. So I get home from work. I don't even really care about, wrestling being on TV. I just want to go to bed so I can start the next day. But think what WWE would be if they would have signed AJ Styles. Maybe they would have thought he was just going to be some sort of a mid-card guy, but they could easily plug him in. I mean, the people that they thought they were going to have, Daniel Bryan is on the sidelines. Every day you're reading a new story about a different surgery he has to have in order to get him back. Batista went out to basically plug his movie that did really, really big numbers. I think it did bigger numbers than they thought it was going to. Definitely Batista got a lot of write-ups. He got a lot of people saying that, this guy's going to be a big star of a writer. I'm sorry, not a writer. He's going to be a big star of an actor. By just going out there. Definitely there's going to be scripts pouring in on his doors, people trying to get him into roles as an action star. Who knows, maybe Batista, I don't know how old he is compared to The Rock, but you got to think that, he's started wrestling after The Rock did. He doesn't look younger than The Rock, but you don't know, maybe maybe he is. I wish I would know what that is, but who knows, but basically, Batista's not on the show. Brock Lesnar isn't on the show. So it's just sort of like John Cena, Seth Rollins. Chris Jericho's come back to sort of help out along the way, but maybe AJ really could have a role that really does matter along the way. Goals for this show in the upcoming time, I would love to have, I don't know if it's going to be a permanent co-host, because I'm doing this right now. It's 11:30 at night. I'm gonna try and make this video, and I'm gonna try and turn it in first thing Thursday morning. I think that he had plans to air it on Friday, so it's a little bit hard for me to square up a co-host. But I think I would like to have, maybe some sort of a guest that I can talk to via computer or via phone, or however it has to be done. I would love it if I can be able to send out tweets and to be able to take calls on the show or actually talk to people. I think if I was talking to people, I think I would be able to even expand the show and do 2 hours, because it's easier to play off of somebody else. I know I've done videos in the past with my good buddy Freaking Yaya 88 Miguel. He's one of my best friends. I don't think I would have been. I really don't think I've really had as many wrestling excursions if it wasn't for Miguel. Definitely, we both went to WrestleMania 26, even though it wasn't together. And we didn't even become friends. I definitely knew who he was. He didn't know who I was until after that trip. And then basically we went to the SummerSlam 2010. He talked me into going to that show. And then I was really trying to get him to go to WrestleMania 27 with me. His plans, honestly, was to not even go on that trip. And then all of a sudden we're all going. And then we're out there. I've done shows with him in the past. They've been a success on YouTube. So maybe I can lock it up sometimes. But, it's hard. He works. I work. It is what it is. Maybe I can get, some other of my buddies on there. Or maybe just some, just a day where I just have a random co-host come on here and help out, where you can just basically STS and, get along and talk wrestling. But we made it an hour. I didn't even have to take a drink the whole episode. I'm really surprised. I was really nervous to do this, guys, so thank you for listening. I'm open to hear any sort of criticism or thoughts on the show. I don't really know what I'm going to lock down in order to record this show. I tried it with the easiest thing I could think of, so if it works, it works. If it needs a little bit of tinkling, we'll see what happens. I know my good buddy Eric Darcy sent me an idea of how to record this as a podcast, but I thought that if I recorded it as a video, I'd be able to upload it on the channel. So 60 minutes. Peace out, everybody. Have a good one.